Hi everyone, this is Michelle from MaMi's Country Quilts. Welcome back to our virtual classroom. Today our class is on a flower through lattice, which you see here to my right. This is actually a pattern that Mika and I came up with using the Dream Big panels. So it's actually one of Judy Niemeyer's paper piecing patterns from Quiltworks. So it's this pattern here that you see. But along with this pattern, you also need our addendum to the pattern because we're not following Judy's pattern all the way through. However, we do need the papers and the templates that she's provided in her pattern, and then we're doing our own thing. So in the original Chinese lattice pattern, she's using just some regular fabrics behind the lattice, where we've chosen to take, and I have one of the panels here that we're using for ours. This is the Dream Big panel called Summer. So we're going to be using this panel to do ours. And you need 4. So you need 4 of the Dream Big panels. And of course, then you need the lattice that's going to be in between the flower blocks. So because this is a paper piecing pattern, we're going to need a few different tools that we normally use for traditional piecing. So over and above your regular tools like cutters and pins and your 6x24 ruler and 12 or 15-inch square, you're also going to need an add a quarter ruler. And it doesn't matter if it's a 12-inch or the 18-inch. Likely if you have the 12-inch, it's the better size because our blocks are not big, so it's not as cumbersome to use with the units. But if you have the 18-inch, that works as well. You're also going to need a full template. And again, these are cut in various sizes here. I just brought these 2 out to show you. And I will explain the use of this as when we get to that portion of the class, but you will definitely need that. It's basically just a piece of plastic template. You can buy them by the sheet and then just cut them in various sizes. So we normally cut ours 3 inches by the length of the sheet, if it's an 11-inch sheet or an 8.5-inch sheet, whatever you have. So you can see here I have a shorter one and I have a longer one. So again, it's because we do a lot of paper piecing, we have various sizes on hand. The other thing we definitely will need is paper clips, and this is just something that I buy at where you buy your stationery or office supplies, and it's a 2-inch paper clip, so they're not super small, but they're not super big either, but they're big enough that we can hold on to what we need to hold on to. And also we will need a glue stick. My favorite glue stick is still the Fons & Porter glue pen, so it's just a pen that just rolls up. And then if you have a refill, you can have some of those on hand as well. So basically that's what we need for the paper piecing class. And of course we'll need some labels and some pens and all that stuff too. So having talked about that, we're going to start the class. So I'm just going to go through the pattern to tell you what we need out of Judy's pattern and get that ready, and then we're going to get started. So in the Chinese lattice pattern, we're going to pull out the pattern, and you're going to pull out the sheets that are in here, so the newsprint. So if you look at your pattern, she will have on here the sheets that are in the pattern that we need, and it's listed as how many pages of each that we have. So the NP 583 should have 9 pages, TP 386 you should have 2, and TP 387 you should have 2. So the NP stands for newsprint, and we'll likely have all of the papers that we need for sewing. So those are the ones that will say unit, like on this page right here. So this is NP 583. You have pieces that say unit A4, unit A5, unit A3. These are going to be our sewing papers. So we're definitely going to need those. And then the TP 386 is the other one that we're going to use. And TP stands for template. paper. So this is going to be a template that we are going to need to cut out our lattice fabric or our sashing fabric for our blocks. So we're going to be using the units A1 through A5 template layout sheet number 4. The other ones we will not need for this project because we are doing something different with the fabric that's going behind the lattice. So we have to cut it differently than what Judy is instructing in the pattern. So I'm just going to go through how to cut out your pattern papers and your unit papers. So I'm just going to grab one sheet. So typically everyone wants to cut these out with a pair of scissors. Those of you who know me know that I will not be using a pair of scissors because I really do like my rotary cutter. So I am going to just take one sheet here just to show you quickly how to do this. Okay, so this is NP 583. And these are all units, so we need all of these for cutting. So I'm gonna grab my cutter, and I have cutters in the shop here when I'm teaching and when we're sewing, designated for paper cutting and for fabric cutting. So because we do a lot of paper piecing, what we do is we designate certain handles with old blades. So when they're not cutting fabric so greatly, we will demote them down to a paper cutting blade. So that's what I have in my pink cutter here today. And I will use that blade for cutting my papers out. So to cut these out, we typically, around the unit pieces, we cut 1/4 of an inch away from the last line of your unit. And when it's close, like these two are, the two A1s are, we will just cut right in the center of the space between those two units. So this is not exact cutting. You just don't want to have a lot of paper beyond your unit, but you want to have a little bit of paper there. So I'm just going to show you how to do that real quick. So I'm just using my add 1/4 ruler. You can use just a regular ruler if you want to, just a straight edge like this. It's just whatever you have on hand. So I'm just going to lay this down here, and I'm just going to cut. And again, this is not precise cutting, so you don't have to get caught up in the fact that it's exactly 1/4 inch. And I'm just going to slide this back. One of the reasons I do like using my 1/4 inch add 1/4 ruler for this is because I use the lip as a quick guide for an approximate 1/4 inch. So you don't have to, if you don't like eyeballing or being non-precise, it's just a way of being a little more precise. So you're just going to cut like that. So this piece here that you see that I just cut out, it says accent template layout sheet number 5. We are not going to need that, so I'm just going to put that to the side. I'm just going to cut that in half. So now we've got A5. So sometimes it's a bit of a puzzle, so I just do all the lines that I can see that are going up and down right now, the way that my sheet is on my mat, instead of twisting and turning all the time. Alright, so I've finished cutting one paper. You still have 8 papers left to cut. I will go and do that. And when you have done cutting all of your unit A, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, we're going to bag them at that point. So that's part of our regular list, includes bags. So if you don't have that as part of your regular sewing supplies, you will need some bags for this project. And we'll need 4 of them for the blocks at this time. So what you're going to do is you're going to take 9 of the A1s and put them into 9 of each of the A1s, A2s, A3, A4, and A5. So you're going to have 9 of each. I just have 1 of each here, but you will have 9 of each of these units, and put that into 4 different bags. So there's going to be 9 in bag 1. There will be 9 in bag 2. So again, you're seeing me just pick up 1 of each here, but you will have 9 of each of these, as will I once I have all my sheets cut out. So you're going to take a set of 9 each of units A1 to A5 and put them into 4 different bags. Alright, so once we have all of our papers in our bags, or unit papers, we're just going to put that aside, and then we're going to carry on with cutting our template papers. So I am going to grab the TP 386. There should be 2 of these. So I'm just putting the 387 to the side. So these ones we cut differently. On our units papers, we were cutting a 1/4 of an inch away from the outside line. For your template papers, we are cutting on the line. So we are going to be using the template, the units A1 through A5 template layout sheet number 4. So we need to cut out this rectangle and this rectangle, and we have, so that means we're going to have 4 of those because there's 2 on each sheet. We are not going to be needing the rest of this sheet. So I'm just going to cut these guys out. So you can see here that I am just cutting on the line or just right beside the line. So when we say template layout sheet, this is what we're going to be using to cut out some of our fabrics, and more specifically our sashing fabric in this case. Okay, so that is 2. So I will not be needing this. I'm just going to fold that back up. Bring out my other one. And you'll do the same thing on the second sheet. We're just going to use these 2 template layout sheets. Alright, so we have 4 of these template layout sheets. So what we're going to do is put one each of those in the bags that we put the unit papers in. So we have our 4 bags. You're going to put one each of these in each bag. So at this point, we have our papers cut out, so that means you have 9 A1, A2, A3, A4, and A5 unit papers in each of the 4 bags, plus you have one of the template layout sheet number 4s in each bag. Okay, so once we have that all prepped and ready to go, we are ready to start cutting some fabric. So we're going to start with cutting our lattice fabric. So this is what we're using for the lattice, which is the dark fabric in between of our Dream Big panels in here. So for this, I'm going to refer you back to the Chinese lattice pattern on page 5. All right, so even though I'm referring you to page 5 of Judy's pattern for the cutting of the 6.5 inch strips, just be aware that's all we're doing out of the pattern. You cannot follow the rest of that instruction. Just follow along with what I'm doing. Page 5 is just showing you the size of the strips that you need and how many. So at this point, we're just going to carry on with cutting our strips and then follow along. Judy's asking you to cut 18 6.5 inch strips by width of fabric. So we're going to do that at this point. And I'm gonna cut 2 strips at a time because we're cutting templates, which means that that fabric is going to be retrimmed at some point when we start paper piecing. So this, as much as it should be fairly accurate, it doesn't have to be precise as it has to be in traditional piecing. So I'm just going to cut 2 strips at a time here. So that means that I will only need 9 cuts instead of 18. So I'm just stacking my 2 ends of my fabric together. And I'm going to start by squaring my fabric. So I'm using an 8.5 inch ruler today and a 15.5 inch ruler. So again, you're just going to put a line on the fold of your fabric so that the fold is at closest to me at the bottom here. So I'm just putting my 3/4 inch line on the fold of my fabric. So that gives me a straight line down here, and I'm just going to butt my 8.5 by 24 inch ruler against my 15 inch ruler. Slide that over. So at this point, I have a new blade in my cutter. So I've used this for cutting paper. I have replaced it with a new blade so that I can cut paper or cut my fabric properly at this point. Alright, so I've got that squared. I am cutting 6.5 inch strips. So I'm just going to rotate this so that my 6.5 is on the edge of my fabric. cutting by twos to count by two. If you have to re-square at some point here, you can definitely do that. So I've got 12 strips here. All right, so now that we have our 18 6.5-inch strips, we're going to take those and we're going to make 2 stacks of 9 strips. So you're going to open them up like this, and again, right sides up. So that one of the reasons why I didn't take my fold off here is because I want to use my fold as the halfway mark in my fabric, and it's also indicating to me that that's right side up, because when it's folded like this, coming off the bolt, they're folded wrong sides together. So you want to make sure these are right side up. With the batik, that's hard to tell, and sometimes it doesn't matter. For some of us, it matters a little bit more. And so you're going to continue stacking like that. So you're going to stack them right side up, one on top of the other. And what you want to do here is make sure that you're lining up the left side of your strip so that they're all even, and you're lining up the bottom and the top. So you're just making them as even on the sides and ends as you can. So that's 3. So we're gonna set, so you're gonna make 2 piles of 9. This is 4. So normally we would press this fold out. I just left it there today just because we're going to be cutting there anyway, and it's also easier for me to show you how to determine the right side of your batik. Okay, we've got 2 more to go. Okay, so now that we have our 9 in this stack, I'm just going to go back. I'm just going to pull 2 bags out here. Doesn't matter which 2, but we're going to pull that template layout sheet that we had just put in there. So one's going to go on this half of your stack, and the other one is going to go on the other half. So basically we need enough fabric for these 2 templates. So I'm just going to cut right in the center here. So I'm basically just cutting on the fold of my fabric. So it's 9. So if your blade is sharp, you should be able to cut through that just like I did. It shouldn't be a problem. You can also use, when we're using stacks of fabric like this too, it's also a good idea to have a 60mm rotary cutter on hand. But in this case, the 45 works too. Okay, so once we have that cut in half, you're going to grab your paper clips, and we're going to clip the sections on here. So this is one section, this is another section, just like that. I'm just putting my paper clips so they're not on the lines because we're going to be cutting there. This one should work like that. So you're going to need 4 on the ends. I'm just going to move my paper up a little bit here. So basically I am just centering my paper on my fabric. So like that. And then I'm going to go to the other end and do the same thing. So you're going to have three sections on the right hand side. So another thing that I do here, you'll notice that all my clips have the big side of the clip on top of the paper and the little side on the bottom. And that's just something that I do to remind me that that's the right side of my fabric. So, because you won't always have a template layout sheet necessarily when you're paper piecing, depending on what the pattern is. And once this goes back into the bag and you're pulling it out, if there's no paper to tell you that's the right side up, you're going to be lost as to what the right side up is. So that's just something that I do just a habit that I get into so that I don't get mixed up as to what the right side up is. So we got that one done, and we have one over here. So what we're going to do with this is cut this apart, but we're going to do that when we're ready to start paper piecing. So at this point, you're just going to fold this up and you're just going to put this back in the bag for right now. So there's going to be one, and this one is going to go into the other bag. So again, I'm just going to clip these together. Okay, and then this one will be folded up and put into the other bag. So those two bags can be put to the side. So I have already stacked and cut my last stack of 9 strips and cut them in half. So I will go ahead and grab my 2 other bags and take those template layout sheets, put one on each stack. I will paper clip those and put those in the bags, and I'll be right back.